The more I hear Ryan Day and Denzel Burke talk about Jeremiah Smith, it's just confirming what numerous people have said about the talented wide receiver. Jeremiah Smith is a real deal.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Feel Good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Here on Friday, July 26th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Jeremiah Smith is different. Normally, when we have a receiver that's a freshman at Ohio State, you hear some things about, hey, he's a project. He may be flashy in practice. But the rotation is these 4 or 5 or 6 guys, and that freshman that's flashing is not a part of that top 6 group in the rotation at wide receiver or any position out there. But Jeremiah Smith, Brian Smith has come on here and talked about Jeremiah Smith. John Garcia Jr. previously came on here during the recruiting cycle and talked about Jeremiah Smith. People that have been covering this sport for 20, 30, some even 40 years have talked about Jeremiah Smith in a way that you don't normally hear people talk about a true freshman, regardless of position. Yeah, some are saying he is the closest thing to Randy Moss or the best prospect, right, wide receiver since Randy Moss. And a lot of y'all have seen Randy Moss in the Vikings. Some of y'all saw him play in college. Think about the high school clips that you think, and you go back and look on the YouTube, that Randy Moss that just torched everybody on the field. People are saying he's the best receiving prospect since that guy. That's Jeremiah Smith, and he's wearing the scarlet and gray. And Ryan Day and Denzel Burke have done a lot of watching of Jeremiah Smith. Burke has gone one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. Ryan Day recruited him. Ryan Day is coaching him now. And all they're doing when they talk about him now is confirming what everybody else is saying. This guy is a real deal. And they're saying this stuff before he steps on the field to play his first regular season game as an Ohio State Buckeye. First regular season game in college football. Y'all, that ain't normal. What they're saying about this young man isn't normal. The clips we're seeing from him float around the socials from him in practice, that ain't normal. None of this is normal, and Jeremiah Smith ain't normal, which is why Brian Smith, when he talks about Jeremiah Smith on the show, he talks about him in such a way where you're like, wait, I get it. I understand. Because even Brian Smith, as critical as he is and good of an analyst as he is, and with college football and covering the recruiting, he also realizes there's stuff you can say about Jeremiah Smith that you can't say about other people. Even those that are elite prospects, they're not described in the same way as Jeremiah Smith. Denzel Burke at Big Ten Media Days didn't really hold back and kind of said some things that, well, it didn't take long for you to realize that what he is saying and how he is saying it, that he's talking about Jeremiah Smith being the real deal. Quote, to be honest, he's like that. Like that. So he's next up. And I'm really excited for just seeing these next couple of years and what he's going to bring to the table for our team this year too. Man, y'all, look. Anytime somebody says, hey, he like that, you know exactly what they're talking about. Then when he says like that, I'm thinking, hey, you got my attention. And it's because of who it's coming from. And this is no knock on Jermaine Matthews Jr. on the type of player that he is. But if Jermaine Matthews Jr., a second-year guy at Ohio State, said, hey, that dude right there, he's like that. It means something. I'm not going to say that his word does not mean anything. But when Denzel Burke says it, those words are weighted in a different way. They hit you in a different way than if Jermaine Matthews Jr. or Calvin Simpson Hunt. This is no knock on those guys as athletes. It's just Burke's been around a while. Burke's literally going to be a 4-year starter. Burke is going to be one of those guys. One, he already represented Ohio State at the Big Ten Media Days. He will probably be voted as a captain. And if all goes like we think it will be, he's a future first-round pick, which is why his words mean something. Then there's Ryan Day. And you know when Ryan Day starts talking, you know that we all tend to pay attention and listen in. And we kind of lean in a little bit to figure out exactly what he is saying, the pace, the words are coming out of his mouth, and you're not trying to miss a word of what he is saying and the phrasing of the topic that's right in front of him. Well, Jeremiah Smith is a topic in front of him, and Ryan Day had some high praise to heap on Smith as well. Quote, "It's easy to see how talented he is. I think the thing you already recognize, though, is that he's really good at the no talent things as well. But I'm going to hold off comments until he plays his first snap at Ohio State. Then we'll go from there," end quote, which I think is very, very wise. I think it's very, very smart. I think that Burke is what Burke is saying. I believe what he's saying, and I believe what Ryan Day is saying. And normally I am on the Ryan Day train as far as that philosophy. Wait till that cat steps on the field before we start heaping high praise on him. Normally that is me. Now, I fell into the trap earlier this offseason on the Jay Stevens podcast. I was talking about Caitlin Clark, and I already called her a star for the Fever before she played a second. I got a click of playing time for the Indiana Fever. Why? Because I believe she was going to be. I believe that she was going to be that player. Now, also, injuries could happen, and there could be things that could derail how successful she is on the basketball court, and some things are outside of her control. So all those things are true, but I kind of believed it from based off what I had seen in college. But keep this in mind. There are players that are most outstanding players in college that don't translate to the professional level. So keep that in mind before we go out and say, well, just because they were most outstanding in college, they're going to be a star in the WNBA or a star in the NBA or the NFL. That's not how this thing works. No, not at all. But not only did Denzel Burke say some stuff about Jeremiah Smith, so did Ryan Day. And Jack Sawyer, he added his 2 cents too. Quote, "That kid is just special. That's the only word I can use to describe him. Having been in his shoes, meaning being a 5-star recruit and having a lot of hype surrounding him coming in, I was like, man, I just want to see him practice a couple of times. Then I saw him for the first time, the first practice. I was like, holy bleep, this kid's good," end quote. Yeah, I know we're not going to say that word. That's the bleeped out word that was audibly bleeped by me. But yeah, this kid's good. And I'm only basing that off of what people are saying. I am more like a Ryan Day. Wait till he steps on the field. Let's get some games under his belt, get some snaps under him, get those game reps consistently happening on Saturdays. But when Burke is saying it, when Sawyer is saying it, 2 leaders for the Buckeyes this year, y'all, that means something. Just as much as what Ryan Day's words mean something here, Burke's and Sawyer's do as well. Hey, if Burke said he liked that, then I am inclined to believe that Jeremiah Smith is like that too. Do you believe in Jeremiah Smith and believe that he is like that? Leave a comment on this video and let me know your preseason thoughts for the 5-star true freshman wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, who will be starting for the Buckeyes in about a month from now. It's crazy that the season's almost here. So crazy. I know fall camp starts next week, and we're excited about fall camp and getting some more questions answered and getting the team ramped up for the season. But man, it's so crazy. Oh, so crazy. I like it. I love it. Y'all, I can't wait. I cannot wait to the start of the college football season. Ohio State steps on the field and just starts busting heads all game long. Ohio State's busting heads on the field. And it may be because they did something off the field financially to help build the roster in a way that, well, they had to spend a whole lot of chicken to make that thing happen. We'll dive into exactly what kind of chicken I'm talking about next. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Ohio State's one of those teams that when it comes to the financials that are part of their athletic department, and even if you want to look at football specifically, they're bringing in a whole lot more money than almost any other school in the country, both as an athletic department and as a football program. If you separate the football financials away from the totality of the financials that Ohio State brings in via revenue every single year, the football program is making bank. And the athletic department, they got that money too. Well, normally we don't talk about the NIL in this light at this point in the season, but the everydayers realize NIL is a big part of college football in how teams are legitimately building their rosters. And so when I think about this thought about NIL and the collectives and the brand affiliates and all of those things there, it makes me think about what Ryan Day said, I think it was a couple years ago, around some boosters saying, hey, it's going to take about $13 million to maintain the roster. Not even saying to get the roster, about $13 million to maintain the roster. And everyone's like, whoa, 13 mil? Excuse me? This is Ryan Day being upfront and personal about, hey, about 13 mil. Nobody really realizes in the moment you're focused on Ryan Day, focus on the other schools in the country that have been doing this same thing for decades. Legitimate decades. But Ryan Day just like, hey, about 13 mil to maintain it, we'll make this thing happen. And then Ross Bjork was talking to Ross Dellinger, covers college football for Yahoo Sports. And Ross Dellinger got Ross Bjork, the new AD at Ohio State, on record talking about the things that Ohio State has done via the collectives and the brand affiliates, and those two combined have dispersed to Ohio State football players around $20 million this past year. In all likelihood, that figure probably ranks first in America. That's in that last part's commentary from Ross Dellinger. But when he says first, it likely, or that figure ranks in all likelihood first. I mean, it's probably does, but when there's no true tracking of the things, there's no guidelines, no rules, it could be. I'm just going to throw out some big names. USC might be funneling some money to these players, but not getting the results. Georgia might be doing the same thing. Alabama might be doing the same thing. Oregon might be doing the same thing. And this is the world in which we live in right now in college football. You got to pay up. You got to pony up. You got to put that money out there. You got to be like, look, hey, we know we got these collectives, and we know we got this, we know we got that. We need all of y'all and then some to help just simply get this roster put together. It's a wild and crazy world we live in. I never thought, as a college football fan, even way before I became a talking head here with you on Locked On Buckeyes 5 days a week, I never thought in my life that I would see a college football, the sport that I have loved for so many years, be talking about money with the athletes and the athletic directors and the athletic departments and the collectives, which are a new thing. I never thought ever that this would be a conversation we'd be having consistently, but that's where we are. That's how the landscape of this sport has changed. That is exactly what Ryan Day and Ross Bjork have to be on the same page about. And Ross Bjork was down at Texas A&M before he came up to Ohio State, which is down there in College Station, Texas, now in Columbus. You can only imagine College Station, Texas. It ain't Austin. It ain't Dallas. It ain't Houston. It ain't San Antonio. It ain't one of them bigger cities. No, it's not. It's a smaller town. Well, Columbus ain't that. Columbus is massive. I believe I don't know the exact number of people, the population in Columbus, Ohio, but it's a whole lot larger than what's going on down there surrounding Kyle Field, where the Aggies play football on Saturdays in the fall. And Ross Bjork really understands the seriousness of the matter. Of one, you got to be able to play. You have to pay players in some way. And I'm not saying I'm on board with the way the NIL is. I still don't think NIL is really utilized in the way that it's meant to be. I think other people understand that too. I still think what the true meaning of NIL was endorsements. Now you're gonna say, man, it's so and so could get some food, so and so could get a protein shake. All right, I spent a lot more time watching YouTube and these tours of these universities than I used to. And what I've seen recently is, look, I've seen some of these lacrosse facilities that are way bigger than you would think. Stadiums are bigger than you would think. They have the amenities that are different than you would think. And all of a sudden, if you're like, wait, the amenities, they have this, they got that. Yeah, why? Because that's what you get when you're part of that sport at that school. Not every school is made the same and built the same and has the same finances. That is true. However, y'all, NIL is meant to be endorsement deals, man. Not the way that it's being used right now. It's simply just a different way to describe what's been happening for decades. Now, not all of the money being funneled right now via NIL is not using endorsement deals. People are not just being given money without providing a service for somebody else. That's not true, but players are capitalizing on their name, image, and likeness. We see it in the EA Sports College Football 25 video game. I wish more players, every Ohio State player was in the game because y'all, look, I was really looking forward to playing with Tuimoloau. I've always played with that left end, and in the game, if the right end is better than the left end, what do I do in the depth chart? I switch them. I swap them. And right now in the game, many of you are like me. Jack Sawyer is at left end, and trust me and Jack Sawyer be wrecking heads, busting heads all day long, just wreaking havoc in the backfield. That's what we do. But look, I want Tuimoloau in that game. I want JT in the game. So JT, Tuimoloau's on one side, on my left end side, and then Sawyer's on the other side. Whoo. Y'all, in the video game, that's a nightmare. Imagine what that's going to be for opposing quarterbacks in the fall. Back to the topic at hand. This NIL collective stuff, man, it's wild, insane. And Ross Bjork even realizes there are businesses in Columbus that they're going to get tapped into. They're going to be utilized. They're going to be contacted. And we may be seeing collectives at Ohio State truly get so massive and get so big, people are going to be thinking, how in the world, one, did that happen? And two, how in the world are we going to be able to compete with the Ohio State University? These are legit questions. This is also the world that we're living in. One, shout out to Ross Dallinger for doing the hard work, the dirty work, and getting some of those things from Ross Bjork about the landscape and the utilization of Ohio State via the collectives and the brand affiliates, and just simply how much money Ohio State football players got over the past year. Around $20 million. That's still insane. That's an insane amount of money. But if that's what they're doing, okay, cool. Just make sure when they put them guidelines in, y'all follow them. Because we all know what happens with Ohio State. When Ohio State don't follow them guidelines, everybody and their mama comes for Ohio State's head. I'm not saying that's correct or that should happen, but that's what happens. Also, what happens is occasionally your boy links up with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football, and we do a little crossover throughout the offseason. Well, this one was in regards to Big Ten Media Days. He was actually live on Big Ten Media Days when we did this show together. We're going to close out this show with a crossover with myself on Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin talking about, you guessed it, Ohio State, Michigan. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
The biggest question for Ohio State this year, positionally, might be what they get out of the quarterback spot. But big picture, it's are they finally going to beat Michigan? I think so. Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, joining me here on the show. Look, this is something that is going to be asked to Ryan Day several times throughout the year. You could even have questions about Michigan pop up when Ohio State isn't playing Michigan, because as is usually the case, I expect Ryan Day to blast into oblivion everybody that they play this year other than Michigan and Oregon. So is that the biggest question for Ohio State this year? Is it just all about the Michigan factor, even more so than the October 12th meeting in Eugene against the Ducks?
Absolutely. It's easily the biggest game of the year. That's not a knock to Oregon. Oregon's a really good football team, but Michigan is Michigan. They've beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. It is called the game for a reason. It's Ohio State's biggest rival. And Ryan Day has to get this monkey off his back. He has to get over this hurdle. It's players like Denzel Burke and Jack Sawyer and Emeka Egbuka that are actually at Big Ten Media Days on Tuesday that are coming back to Ohio State. They have unfinished business, and part of that unfinished business is beating Michigan Thanksgiving weekend in 2024. So absolutely, that's the biggest thing with this team. And you can go 11-0. If you lose that game, it's just like the previous 3 seasons. And Ohio State and the players have a lot of looking inward saying, what is wrong with us? Why is this happening over and over?
Yeah, and I do think it's different this year, because if Ohio State beats Oregon, loses to Michigan, goes 11-1, the difference is they could still end up winning the national championship. That could still be in play there. But at home, they've opened, according to our friends at FanDuel, as a 9.5-point favorite. That's a game that you just got to win. Like, there are just no excuses. The number of players that Michigan lost, are they going to be a good team? Yes, they have 3 players on the preseason Big Ten honorees list, which I find to be a strange list. Personally, it's not a complete side of the ball. It's just 12 players, but Ohio State's got 4 of them. Michigan's got 3. Oregon's got 2. And then you got a handful of other players from the rest of the Big Ten teams. So it's natural to have that sort of expectation. But Ryan Day was asked about beating Michigan. Here's what he had to say.
I think when you look at, year in and year out, the expectations are what they are, and every year you have an opportunity at Ohio State. You have an opportunity to win every game, and that's what the expectations are, and that's because of the great players and coaches that have come before, and we certainly understand that. And after every year, you got to identify what are the things that have held you back from reaching your goals, knowing that we want perfection and we want to win the game at the end of the season. And in particular, like last year, what was it that prevented us from finishing off that last drive or getting off the field on defense, and why didn't we do that? And it's easy to say, well, it comes down to a play or two, but that's not really the case. We need to do is we need to leave no doubt. Don't leave it to one play. Don't leave it to one call. Don't leave it to one stop. Leave no doubt when you're on the field, and we're not going to get into all the reasons or all the things that we've done to try to address that, to get that fixed, but we worked hard on that, and we feel good about where we're at going into the season.
That game, Jay, is always going to be hyped up. It's always going to be big. Now, Paul Feinbaum took it to the extreme because why not? That's what Paul's been doing lately. I talked about his USC take on yesterday's show. Patently absurd, completely ridiculous. And he had another one here for a guy who is 39-3 against the Big Ten as Ohio State's head coach. He said if you lose to Michigan, you fire Ryan Day. Like, this is nonsense, right? Like, the complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah. Because I was on the train at one point saying, hey, if Ryan Day loses this game once again this year, he's gone. And then I had the realization he could still win the conference. He could win the national championship. He could end the year with a conference championship ring and trophy. Same for the national championship ring and trophy. And so as much as I do put the emphasis on that game, and that's very, very important, if he turns that thing around the next week and wins the conference, and about a month and a half later wins the whole thing, yeah, that loss still stings. But he did something nobody has done at Ohio State since 2014, which was Urban Meyer's only national championship win at Ohio State. So Paul Feinbaum has been on this hot take streak lately. I'm not a big fan of all the things that he says. Stay in the South, bro. Stay down there, be the mouth of the South, and let us up here in the Midwest deal with the stuff going on at Ohio State.
Like LeVar Ball might say, stay in your lane. Stay in your. I mean, I don't know. Did you see the interaction with him and Lane Kiffin at SEC Media Days last week?
I heard the audio.
Lane Kiffin going up there saying,
Yeah.
I don't, you said this and that. You said Saban would retire. That didn't happen. I don't really know what you're good at. And I was like, oh, that's good.
I say that sarcastically about Paul Feinbaum. He has done a good job of making a name for himself, being very successful in this business. But also, like, the whole hot take thing.
It just gets old. I get tired of it.
Yeah, it gets very old. If you have a hot take, make sure it's backed with some type of fact and not just your own opinion that's not just grabbing, Day fired. No, don't grab it.
But even if you're in the hypothetical realm, keep it within, this galaxy of being reasonable or logical. Like, not everything you disagree with is clickbait, but it's just so, it gets pretty tiresome. And like the standard at Ohio State is incredibly high. And Ryan Day talked about that as well.
Well, I think we're all excited about the opportunity, and we all see what could be, but we also know that, that's kind of wasted energy at this point. We got to maximize, the preseason. But at the same time, you do. I mean, you get excited about this team. What's possible, and there's a reason why these guys decided to come back and forego their opportunity in the NFL, and that's to go do exactly that. And that's okay. I mean, these guys are proud and they're competitive and they want it and they think big, and that's the way it should be. But at some point, we got to get back to work and focus on what matters.
National championship or bust, Jay? That was the way the question was posed because of what Denzel Burke said earlier today at Big Ten Media Days. Is that how you are viewing this season for Ohio State, given the players returning, Ryan Day and how long he's been there without winning a national championship, which is an insane standard to hold, but okay, it's Ohio State. The amount of NIL that's gone into this roster, reportedly well over $20 million. Like, is it national championship or bust for the Buckeyes?
Yes, and I'm only saying that because the players are saying it. My expectations for the team would be different if it wasn't for Denzel Burke saying it, I believe, in the spring, natty or bust. And then you have Jack Sawyer, who is kind of saying the same thing, and you have the leaders in the clubhouse that are all saying natty or bust, natty or bust. Will Howard came to Ohio State to raise his draft stock, but to also win a natty. And so when you're saying that in practice in the spring, in the summer, heading into fall camp, yeah, that is the expectation. That is because that's what you're saying. Ohio State every year has 3 goals: beat Michigan, win conference, win the natty. That's not my standard. That's their standard. And based off their standard, that's what I need to hold them to, because that's what they're holding them to. So yes, absolutely, it's natty or bust expectations for the team, because that's what they're saying inside the locker room.
I respect that sort of mentality. I think it puts, some pressure on yourself, but if you feel like you're ready for it, certainly Ohio State, they might have the best overall roster in college football outside of this team down in Athens, Georgia, who I'm told have recruited at a very high level over the last few years. But those reports are wildly unconfirmed, of course. Jay Stevens, Locked on Buckeyes. Jay, appreciate the time as always.
Really enjoyed it, Spencer. Let's do it again. Thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen of the day. Now is the perfect time to make the Locked on Big Ten podcast your second listen of the day, because Craig Sheeman's done a phenomenal job this offseason of revamping and revitalizing the Locked on Big Ten podcast. And he's also done a great job of covering the conference this week during Big Ten Media Days, and also previewing and diving into fall camps all around the 18-team conference. Wow, that's weird to say. But Craig Sheeman, even though it's 18 teams, he is still covering it like it was 10. Why? Because every school is getting the attention to detail that it deserves. Craig Sheeman, Locked on Big Ten, make it your second listen of the day, because Locked on Buckeyes was your first listen of the day. You can follow me on X at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. We're out of here, Buckeye fans, on a Feel Good Friday. We'll see you next time.